I like to talk about two things, stars and networking. Much like Jania just pointed out about characteristics, I look at it in terms of core competencies. My first point, though, is to have 10 solid stories. I remember my Sherpa, Anne-Marie Dunn, she's great. I remember during orientation, she said that she has a good solid 10 stars. And I swallowed my tongue. I really did, because I felt so overwhelmed at just creating 10 stories when I didn't have anything to start with. But after a while, I did, one or two here, one or two there, a couple on the flight to Nishimba, etc., etc. And once I got to 10, I felt like I had the confidence that I could do well in any kind of interview with any company, and I'd have a good solid story, and I'd have enough variety to really attack the questions I was receiving. Also, line them up with the core competencies. Some companies will identify clearly what the core competencies are, others don't. If you don't have anything better than informational interviews, then use informational interviews. I found out that I saw that once I talked to 2 or 3 or more people from the company, I saw a trend that they were saying the same kind of characteristics, same kind of competencies. And I'm like, okay, well then I imagine that these things just might come up, and actually they did in a couple interviews I had. So it really helped me prepare well and line up my stars before I got in the interview room, and my head was spinning so fast I couldn't think so well. Second point is networking. Not so much networking, outside, with your classmates or whatnot, but just to take advantage of every possible opportunity. If you're at a networking reception, get out of your comfort zone. At Nishimba, my experience was that I went to a company's network reception, and I found that I saw some students kind of grouped off by themselves, or not being proactive, but being a little bit more passive. And I took advantage and actually made a really good contact with a guy named Mike Pachicha. He's really a cool guy, and we kind of hit it off. He was talking about baseball before too long, and I'm not a baseball guy, but he was all about the Houston Astros. He was at a firm in Houston, and it was just great. I could tell that he enjoyed our conversation more because there's that kind of personal connection. He was able to talk about something he enjoyed, and because of that, the business items that we discussed, they stuck. And the next day I bumped into him, and we had a great talk, and he was asking me for my resume and my contact info, and that was he was with the firm that I ultimately got an internship with, and I don't know how much that played into it, but it certainly didn't hurt. Also, don't try too hard. I know that we all know this, it's all intuitive. Don't go off and just use your effort and just go and do everything you can, but then you come off being overbearing or just disingenuous. We all know this, but it's good to be reminded every once in a while. And I like that one last point, just to help your teammates, your classmates. At Nishimba, I had received a list of core competencies from the company in preparation for an interview. That Friday night, I talked to a classmate who had gotten an interview there at Nishimba, and I hesitated for 2 minutes to send him that list of core competencies, because he didn't get that same thing. Like I had said it before I went. And I was so ashamed of myself that I hesitated for that 2 minutes. I'm glad that I came to my senses. I emailed him those core competencies, and I think it helped him out the next day. But I fell into the trap of oh hey, there's some competition out there, and so my message is, hey, get past that, get over yourself, do the right thing, and things will work out for you.
My name is Mark Lingenbrink. My emphasis is OBHR, and I'll second what Joe said earlier. I'm not an expert in internships or gaining internships, so take what I have to say with a grain of salt, but hopefully at least something I say will be helpful to one of you that's out there. A few things I want to talk about. Number one is setting a vision for yourself. I think that was really key for me coming into the program. I knew early on in the summer where I knew I wanted to get an internship, obviously. But before the program even started, I wanted to get an internship. I set a date. I said, October 31st, I want to have an internship offer in hand. And even in OBHR, that might have been a little bit of a lofty goal. And I was told by several people, oh, you're not going to get offers till November. There's just no way it's going to happen. And but I didn't lose sight of that. That was my goal. And I talked to my Sherpa every week about that same goal. And sure enough, I had two offers in hand by October 31st. So my point in telling you that is whatever, have a vision for yourself. So set a goal for yourself, and whether that's, you know, hey, I want an internship by a certain date, or I want to work with, I'm really going to, you know, contact X amount of people from these different companies. Set a vision and a goal for yourself. That'll make it so much easier for you to accomplish the goal that you're setting out to do. The second thing is, and it's been touched on a little bit, but networking. Networking is critical, and what I would say is a couple things. First of all, don't underestimate the power that the second-year students have in the MBA program. I know that was a huge part of my internship search. And reaching out to these second-year students, they have a lot to say. When the recruiters come to campus, they go to the second years that interned with them the previous year before and say, who have you talked to? Who's shown interest? And sometimes that interest plays more a part than what's on your resume or what you've done. And so that's a big part of it. And what I did during the summer before the program even started was I talked to second-year students at the companies that I was interested in finding out more information about. And they gave me names of, hey, here's some other people within HR that you can talk to these specific companies. And honestly, I probably talked to about 50 BYU alumni within HR over the last 2-3 month period of time. And you know, it was just going from one person to the next saying, who else do you know that I can talk to? And that gave me a good feel not only for what type of position I might be going into, but also let them know my interest level. Again, you can even go, the other thing I would add to that is that with recruiters, a lot of times on e-recruiting, there's a job posted. You can go on there and see which recruiter is responsible, at least for the resumes, and who's looking over these resumes. A couple times I just sent an email, a friendly email saying, hey, I'd love to talk to you more about this internship opportunity. You know, can we touch base sometime before they make their decisions? And so that's another tactic that I use. So don't underestimate that power of networking. The third thing I would say is partner with your Sherpa. Mike Bear is my Sherpa. He's a great Sherpa. Some of you may know him and may have sent your resume to him. He's great at that. But when we set a goal every week, we're going to meet. Even if it's for just a half hour, every Thursday we set a goal. And we're going to meet, be consistent about it, and we're going to have a specific purpose for our meeting every week. And for me, my purpose was I wanted to practice interviewing. And Mike Bear is one of the best critics out there, so he will tell you what he thinks. And that was helpful to me. So my point is don't underestimate the power of your Sherpas. These are people that have been successful. Partner with them, and they can really help you in your search. The next thing is practicing interviewing. There were about 4 or 5 OBHR students that got together, I would say on average every other morning, and we set interviewing groups up. And we would interview a lot of times with the same individuals and practice interviewing our star stories, but we would switch it up too. We would rotate, and we would get other people's opinions and feedbacks, and that really helped. I can't tell you how much more comfortable that made me feel going into an interview setting. When I got a question that I'd already practiced, it was great. And getting different sources of feedback, not just like talking to your Sherpa, because your Sherpa may have one area of critique or one area you might be able to work on, but getting multiple people, getting their feedback is critical, I think, and it helps you be successful. The last thing is just practice your star stories, right? So that's been touched on a little bit. I won't go into that in detail, but specifically, I think focusing on the action and results part of your star stories, and that's one piece of feedback I've heard from second years and other recruiters that say the BYU students are great at setting up the situation, the task associated with their star stories. They're not so good at focusing on their actions and results. And so for me, I took every opportunity of spare time to practice my star stories in the shower with my wife, in the car, to and from school. And it sounds silly, but really I think practicing more and more out loud, whether it's with yourself or other people, that can really help. And finally, just own your internship search. You will get out of your internship search what you put into it. So the effort you put in is what you're going to get out of it. And I spent hours and hours and hours on my internship search. I didn't just show up to the information session and then to the interview. I did a lot of preparation leading up to that, and that really helped me and helped me be successful. So hopefully some of those things I've talked about can help you in your internship search, and I wish you all the best of luck.